that is the thing I love so much about working at Meta is it's nobody else's problem. We are all part of it. We all use the products, and it's great to hear feedback from someone like we were just had where, hey, the interaction of video across the platforms here is confusing. Well, great. I'm going to take that feedback right now after this podcast, and I'm going to go tell the team about it.
Explore the minds and marketing strategies behind today's winning brands and businesses. Tap into the power of the creator economy with Earned by CreatorIQ. Here's Conor Begley.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Earned. Today I've got Jackie Pimentel, the Senior Director of Creators and Threads from Meta on the show. Welcome to the show, Jackie.
Great to be here.
And I am really excited. Jackie has braved bronchitis and maternity leave and many other things to take the time out. So thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. Bringing you my Elizabeth Holmes voice today.
There you go. So let's start at the beginning, right? So if you were to go back 14 years, the company's grown over 100x in terms of employees, revenue. You've acquired WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus. Like, it's changed a lot. What has that journey been like to be in the middle of it? Talk us through that.
I started because I really believed in where Facebook was going to play in the future landscape of how we were going to spend our time, connect with each other. I remember this, I was working at PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I remember seeing this slide from Mary Meeker, and it was about how we were spending more and more time on digital versus traditional media like print, radio, TV. And this was like early, I think iPhone might have been out, this was like 2009. So like taking you back to the early days of Facebook, we were the facebook.com when I started.
Yep.
It was a website. Mobile was not really a thing yet. And so we have really traversed mobile becoming such a dominant way that we spend our time. Back then, like the average person was spending less than 20 minutes on their mobile device a day. And now you can run a whole business from your phone over Wi-Fi. The journey at Meta has been like the journey that we've all been part of, which is going from a pretty fragmented world to one where we are more interconnected and our phones are kind of driving a lot of the way that we change. The journey at Meta too has been crazy. It's also felt like a masterclass in monetization for my journey, because when I started, we had only right-hand rail ads. We were early in the ads business. We were trying to grow a small business as well as trying to get brands to believe in social media marketing. And I remember just trying to explain to people what I did. They're like, Facebook doesn't have ads. I'm like, yes, it does. It's right there. It's on the right side. Then we started putting ads in feed. Then we start to see the results. Businesses are now starting to really count on Facebook. Instagram becomes a much bigger platform. So it's really been an incredible journey of how to keep consumers at the center of everything, keep users at the center of everything, but how you keep building a business on top of that. And I'm really proud of that, because a lot of the stuff that I've built that I look back on, like one of my favorite products I ever did was objective-based buying, which at the time people were like, you know nothing about what you're talking about. We buy based off of media type.
Yeah.
You know, video ads, text ads. And I was like, but why can't you just tell the system I want to do this and it just does it for you? And so that was back in 2011, I think, and we launched that. And we thought it was just going to be an SMB product and became a product that everyone used.
Yeah.
And I think that has been part of the journey. It's been just seeing millions of businesses pop up on Meta and millions of creators now that are building on top of it as well. And so it's been fun to be a part of.
It feels like that embrace of creators within the organization, or the recognition of the importance of those, has really increased. You're really important in the organization. They've kind of assigned it to you. What was it that led to that evolution? Like, how has that happened?
Yeah, I think it used to kind of be looked at as user-generated content, just normal people. And it is to some degree, but there's always been interesting user-generated content. And then on Instagram, really the influencer, the creators, we've had them on Instagram for quite some time.
Yeah, totally.
And they have been focused a lot on things like stories and photos. Reels has been something new that I think once we saw that we could focus on a short form video product and video in general and make it really work, that has opened us up to a lot of new creators. And I think that's been where we've seen Meta become a bigger opportunity for a bigger subset of creators. Like some of my favorite comedians now I follow, like Mateo Lane, who's hysterical. My husband also loves him. Nikki Marie, who's like this mom who also does really amazing things about being a single mom too. And so there's been some really amazing video creators that now have cropped up. And I think seeing all of that, we realized that our platform is serving the largest number of creators in the world, largest number of businesses in the world, largest number of people in the world. I mean, we have so much scale.
Yeah.
So we want to keep creating a platform that every creator can grow on. And we also have the benefit of having these interconnected apps. So like broadcast channels, it's on pretty much every major app we have. I think Reels has accelerated our focus.
Yep.
And even though the year of efficiency has been hard, it's helped bring a lot more focus. Like Reels in general has grown from not being a product from a couple years ago to now over 2 billion views a day.
Yeah.
And people are spending over 2 trillion minutes with creator content a year. And that's like an old stat. So it's like even much more than that. I mean, the size and scale of what we're seeing now is pretty crazy.
Wow, that's super cool. So, we've talked about Reels, Instagrams, these other channels, WhatsApp. I didn't realize the whole broadcasting there. That's cool. But one of the things that you're really proud of, right, is this launch of Threads, which I think at the beginning, people were they weren't sure how it was going to go. But I just had a creator that I was meeting with in Austin tell me it's his fastest growing channel, and he's pushing me to get onto Threads. Tell me about Threads. What are you thinking?
First of all, let's talk about the success of Threads, which honestly, it's really hard sometimes to get a product to be big out the gate. I think all of us want that, right? And I've launched a lot of stuff at Meta, and not a lot of it has gone well. And that's okay. We learn. It's okay. With Threads, I think what I learned there is you always come back to the basics. It's like the product. And with the product, we built the go-to-market from day one as we built the product. And I think that was a really important learning of build the go-to-market, know what the positioning is, know what the value prop is, know who your partners are. So then the partner piece was something that we really indexed on with Threads that we hadn't done before. And even when we were building the product, we built with them. We were like, hey, here's some features we want to prioritize at launch. Which ones are most important? Who should have early access? How can they be part of our launch team? And then the rollout approach, usually we do a pretty iterative approach, small percentage, couple markets. And we wanted people to have also a sense of FOMO. So giving people a counter of, when they signed up, you get a number of okay, I'm this in line. I'm pretty sure Zuck's number 1. Adam Mosseri might be number 2. But I'm not up there yet. But I'm a couple thousand. So it was a really exciting launch to be a part of. And we learned a lot. And I think we did things a little bit differently that made it successful. Threads overall, once we got it out, we've closed a lot of feature gaps that we knew we wanted to. And we focused on some use cases. So we're seeing a lot of, first of all, just great engagement. And we actually didn't even have a great reply feature until we closed that gap a couple months ago. And so we've got replies out. We launched in the EU, trending topics, which we're really excited about. We're testing that in the US. So it's growing. We're now at over 130 million monthly active users. So it's growing. It's becoming a vibrant community. Some of my favorite communities that are growing on Threads are basketball. So we have our mayor of NBA on Threads, Yo Rush. And he's self-proclaimed mayor of Threads NBA. But check him out. I love Chloe. She's been posting a lot about March Madness and the women's. So I'm a huge women's NCAA basketball fan. And then book Threads, which also is great for, some of us book nerds too. But it's growing. I'm hoping you're going to start posting more of your content over on Threads. It's a great place to be.
I think I'm going to start doing it. It makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I think is unique about Threads, and maybe is a little bit almost an alter ego to what X is I've heard it's just a much kind of generally happier community, right? It's just a much nicer place to be, less kind of anger. Is that something that was a kind of core emphasis too?
It definitely is. Really, I give credit to the communities that are thriving and the people, the creators who are building those communities. They're setting the tone. Friendly doesn't mean we all get in there and, hold hands and dance around. It can mean we can have great discussion, vibrant discussion, disagreements, but maintaining a level of respect. We've invested a lot in well-being tools across the board, and those policies also come over to Threads as well. Our community standards are the same that we would use on Instagram, we use on Threads. So I think we're absolutely trying to maintain a productive and constructive place for people to engage.
Yep.
And it's fun.
I think one of the things that's most interesting about your career, and you mentioned it already a little bit, but you've been responsible for a lot of launches, right? And a lot of ambitious launches, which I think in particular at larger companies, generally have a hard time, right? But You've got generative AI that you guys have been pushing on really hard lately. You've had threads. Like, I feel like the last year in particular, Meta's just had a tremendous amount of momentum around like new stuff. So for you guys, why do you think you've had success outside of just the threads launch in terms of rolling out these new ambitious projects quickly and effectively?
Yeah, I will say that it wasn't always the case. I remember a very splashy launch I did back in like 2011 or 12 maybe, and it was this premium ad product, and you actually couldn't buy it. Like, we had this huge announcement, and people were like, "Okay, I wanna buy it," and then we had to file, like, an unbreak now. We're like, "Wait, we forgot to, like, build an interface." I'm the first to admit that I am human, and we are human, and there have been a lot of launches that have not gone well.
Yeah.
But I really am so proud of the go-to-market and the launches we've done in the last year, and I think a lot of it has come down to it's been a hard year for a lot of tech companies, but the focus and that level of focus kind of forces you to prioritize what's important and what's not important, and also take some more risks. There were fewer people in the rooms, fewer set of decision makers, and we were able to move things along much quicker. And I think I'd mentioned this too, but building with our community and working with them even before the launch made those launches go better. I don't know if we did it as much with Reels, but we definitely did it more with Threads of building the go-to-market, working with the community before we actually launched the product. And then we also did the same thing with broadcast channels too.
Yeah.
And with Gen AI, we're working really closely with people in the Fediverse. It's building within the activity pub, and it's part of a way to give creators more control over their following on platforms. But more to come on Fediverse. The level of focus, the fewer decision makers, and then really building with the community from the beginning before the product even gets out. Those have helped the launches, I think, go a lot better. And also just, I think we've taken a better approach of how we position the products and using just more normal language, being more approachable. I think when you become a smaller company, it kind of feels to me like Meta many years ago. When I joined, we could take really bold chances. We were not doing everything industry standard. We weren't using 10,000 words to say one thing. It feels like we're back to that, back to our normal DNA there.
So that's really cool you guys are able to operate that way. And honestly, I observed it. I mean, we were just prior to this talking with Brian, who's helping us record, and he was giving you some feedback on threads. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'll text Adam about this later. It's pretty cool that you guys have that kind of culture where feedback can happen that quickly and also be received like that you would feel comfortable sending him that too.
We all use the products. People who work on Threads use Threads. People who work really closely on Reels use Reels. I use it all. It's also a great excuse when I'm on my phone when I can just be like, I am working. It's like I'm watching Reels on Instagram. But that is the thing I love so much about working at Meta is it's nobody else's problem. We are all part of it. We all use the products, and it's great to hear feedback from someone like we were just had where, hey, the interaction of video across the platforms here is confusing. Well, great. I'm going to take that feedback right now after this podcast. I'm going to go tell the team about it.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's honestly one of the hardest problems on the enterprise software side, which obviously you guys have some of that. But a lot of the team isn't using the software day to day, right? So they don't feel the pain that you guys feel as users, which allows you to make it better much more quickly, right? Which is really cool. So I'm curious, actually taking a step back to that part of your kind of time. At that time, one of the big goals was to allow Facebook advertising to be accessible to all businesses around the world. How did you guys go about building trust and really expanding into that kind of small business set of customers at that time?
Building trust is an everyday thing. But I would say to building respect was kind of the first goal of making Facebook, making Meta not just a add-on budget or thought. And working a lot on SMB, I think what we saw was an opportunity to create a platform where it's not just focused on advertisers, it's focused first and foremost on businesses. I think there's like 125, 130 million businesses small businesses on Meta, and a subset of those actually advertise. But the important thing is that we have a free platform. We have a platform that those businesses can build on. And I think that is a big part of first building that respect and trust. And that's focusing on the long-term value. The other part of building trust with the market, and not just SMBs, but the market overall, was always having a set of principles on that longer-term value of first and foremost optimizing for people. We could have made a lot of decisions that would have caused engagement to go down, would have turned people off to using our platforms. And that's not better for us. And it's not better for advertisers or businesses. They need a platform that people want to engage on. And so what I mean is, like, we could have sold banner ads all day long. Rich media, that was like a huge thing back in the day. And I remember so many advertisers were like, I would love to just do like a pop-up rich media ad on, the facebook.com. And we were just like turning down money, right? Because we knew that the longer term value was going to be there. So that's the first thing, is just like focusing on longer term value. The second thing is helping enact change from the inside out. And that's actually where like third parties like you all kind of come in, is realizing we were in trust building and respect building mode with our partners too, with agencies, with our tech partners, with our marketing partners. And they were trying to do the same things we were. We'd go into these conversations and the CMO, CEO would be like, I've never even seen an ad on Facebook. We're pulling out our phone being, it's right there. It's like in the feed. And so I think that too, it has been part of that, is working with the third-party ecosystem as a partner, as an extension of ourselves. And then finally, letting the results really lead. We just constantly had stats. Like, if you look at TV budgets compared to time spent, and you look at digital, all digital, not just us, all digital, there was such a mismatch of budgets and time spent. And that still exists even today. But just continuing to go back to what the data was telling us. So those were the three things, like focusing on long-term value and having principles around our decision that aren't just maximizing for short-term profits, using our third parties as an extension of ourselves. And three was using the data, using the results.
Yeah, that chart you're talking about in terms of time spent, it's a fairly famous one, right? It's the Mary Meeker chart, which basically says that the amount of time spent should equal the amount of advertising spent on a percentage basis.
Theoretically.
Yeah, right, theoretically. And when those are off, right, that means that there should be opportunity, arbitrage opportunity, which I don't know where that chart's at today, but back then it was crazy how off it was.
It's still not at parity. Yeah. Someone asked me too, they're like, what's next for creators? And I'm like, creators have been around forever. Like, I think about Brene Brown started like a website.
Yeah.
And then she kind of websites, GeoCities, like
Oh, yeah.
creators have been around. It's just, they're going to keep adapting to the way that people consume media, interact with media, interact with each other. It's just a natural way. Like, there's this self-determination theory. Self-determination theory comes down to like, there's three basic principles of just psychological well-being, just what we're all striving for.
Okay.
Autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Okay.
So we're constantly seeking those three things in our everyday life. We're constantly trying to become more autonomous. And I look at like AI, like, okay, how's that going to help us? And then relatedness is like to not feel alone in the world. Yeah. And I look at Gen Z, it's like 56% of Gen Z want to be creators. And I think that speaks to like, that generation seems like really focused on autonomy, this economic independence. I think like these questions and things, they persist, but to your point, they just evolve over time.
Yeah, the stats are pretty crazy in terms of what young people want to be. It was like, go back 50 years ago, it was like an astronaut. And like now it's a creator. And that's a dramatic change. I know that you yourself have also been creating, right, on LinkedIn. Is that just kind of organic, or is that something that internally you guys are like, hey, let's start publishing ourselves a little bit more too and putting ourselves out there?
I think a little bit of both. We've always had great creators working at Meta. Eva Chen, who works at Meta, she's amazing. Fashionable. She's an amazing creator, millions of followers. There are so many internally that we work with all the time. And they're just a great first port of call when we need feedback or, people in-house to help us out. But with Zuck, with Adam Mosseri, it's great that our leaders see our platforms as a way to be creators themselves. And I think it's a great thing. It's great to see their personalities come through. Zuck's great on Threads. I highly recommend people checking him out. It's also cool to see that different platforms offer different things to all creators. Like, some creators are more comfortable on Threads as that it's a format that they can get behind. I am still trying to find my voice. I have a lot of empathy for creators. I'm trying to find my voice. What's my point of view? I am still figuring that out. I recently put out a post of like, what kind of content do you all want to see from me to my followers? And they want to hear about creator stuff. They also just want to hear about what it's like being a woman in a leadership position. And my brand is humanity. I'm not perfect. I put out a post a couple days ago that got a lot of traction about how I'm like, hey, I don't have an MBA. I pretty much apologize more often for the things I say rather than like applaud the things I do say. And that's just me. I'm a human being. I still have merit and I still can be powerful. I'm just not perfect. I think that resonated with a lot of people. So I feel like that is kind of my tone. But being a creator myself or dabbling in it gives me a lot of empathy of just how hard it can be at times. And also just any small things we can do to make it easier. It makes me like that much more motivated to keep doing what we're doing at Meta.
Yeah. I have to imagine the last year, was a year of efficiency. You've talked a little bit about how that was tough. Like as a leader, right? People are looking to you for answers, and sometimes there aren't answers, right? Sometimes it's like, we'll see. What have you learned or what have you observed about your own leadership style and how that's changed and how you kind of navigated the last, year plus?
I feel for every leader, manager out there in tech during this period. When I came to Facebook, it was right after the mortgage collapse and recession. We've been in a growth trajectory forever. All of tech has. We haven't really gone through a big contraction. It's mostly all been growth. They don't prepare you for it. And on a human level, it's been tough. I was really pregnant during our first rounds of restructuring, and it was hard. It's really hard. I think some of the things that I've learned, though, during that period and continue to learn are first and foremost, when you're bringing your team through transition, it's not about you. And it can be really hard, but as a leader, just really focusing on other people and the people on your team. And so that was first and foremost. And then after that, I think the way that I am now operating and actually had been operating, but the way I'm operating, I think most people now need to operate. If you are a leader, a manager, you got to operate like a business owner. You have to know your P&L, you have to know your talent, you have to know what's driving, even if you're not driving revenue, what are you doing that's contributing to the business? What's the 80% that you're counting on? And then what's the 20% you're investing in? And always just knowing all of that rigor, I think it just needs to continue. And I do see that as a good thing. This kind of year of efficiency, what we're seeing in the tech industry overall, I think that it's a good thing for us to be more accountable and have a clearer picture of exactly what we're doing and how it's contributing to the bottom line. I also see, a lot of people are now in the tech industry that are doing startups again. And for a while, talent was so hard to come by. When I started at Facebook way back when, VC money started coming into startups. Like Uber was just getting started. Twitter just started growing. I think we're at a similar renaissance for tech, even though right now it feels dark.
Yeah.
This is the time where these startups are going to get amazing talent, and we're going to see some new juggernauts come. And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I can't remember where it came from. It might have been Crunchbase, but they were talking about how VC funding, it's the best it's been since like early 2022. It's gotten back to those levels. And so to your point about kind of talent being available, this is the best time to hire there's been in 10 years, 15 years, right? So I think that that's something that is really exciting, right? And I know we're seeing it too. And obviously the meta business is on fire right now, which is awesome. One of the other challenges as a female leader is something that you've talked about, right? Which is having kids and being a mom. And I think at times I look at that and it just looks really hard from the outside to kind of find that balance. How have you found that balance as a mom, as a working professional, and as a leader? What kind of advice do you give to other women that are coming up that want to follow a similar path?
I have not found that balance. I think that's probably the first and foremost important thing is I will say motherhood for me is the most vulnerable part of myself. And it probably always will be. But if I didn't work, I am happier being a working mom. So I just live consistently with this beautiful tension between feeling like a failure as a mother, but feeling like I will fail as a person if I'm not working. And I've just learned to embrace the suffering. And I'm like reading these stoic books, and it's like in Buddhism, and it's like, if you keep resisting against it, that is suffering. So instead, I'm just like, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
I am, though, really passionate about helping all forms of women leadership thrive in primarily tech, but in all industries. But in tech, what I see is like not seeing a lot of female leadership at certain levels, or if they are there, a lot of sacrifice on any given dimension. And what I'm trying to do is I can be a whole person. I can still prioritize my health. I can still prioritize my family, my friendships, my hobbies, and work. I can do all of the things. I don't have to have so much sacrifice. I can only speak for women, but like I think so much of what I see is like you have to give up on so much in order to succeed, either as a mom or as a working professional. There's a long way for us to go. In the S&P 500, in the last 20 years, we went from 0.4% to 8% of CEOs of the S&P 500 being women. But like some of these women in leadership, it's like you have to be this like superhero to be like a woman leader. And what I want to show is, no, you don't. Like, I'm a very human person. I make mistakes all the time. I'm like constantly just trying to do the best I can. I'm not like a perfect person. And so I think to solve for a lot of this, like some of the things I see are, one is giving women more opportunities. There's so many appointments I see of male leadership of like, this person has no background, no experience, but we're appointing this person. I want to see that with women. Like, take a chance. Unproven opportunities like that. I think being proudly imperfect and unpolished, that goes for both. That goes for all. Let's all just embrace each other. And I love this younger generation of people feel like they're already doing that, of just, it's okay to be just who you are. Like, you should still be professional and respectful, but you don't have to be perfect to be effective. And then the integration of parent and parent types too. Like, I'm the first to admit, there's a lot of times where I'm volunteering at my kid's school and it's like, let's all thank the moms. And there's one dad there. And I'm like, parents, like, let's also shout out the dads or the grandparents or the guardians, whoever else. And I think that is also what can help with the trajectory of helping more women enter the workforce, stay in the workforce, and rise in leadership.
Yeah, I think one of the articles that connected with me the most on this was there was a woman, she was a dean at a university. I don't remember her name or the university, but the article was awesome. And it was written towards women, but I really connected with it. And she was basically saying that in life, you make choices, right? And those choices you make, you should feel comfortable with. Like, if you want to be the partner at the law firm, you won't be able to get to every single soccer practice. That's just not going to happen, right? And the way that she categorized it was there's basically like 4 different categories, right? There's family, there's friends, there's work, and there's health. Those are the 4 things. And she's like, if you want to be really good, you only get to pick 2. And like, if you want to be kind of good, you can kind of pick a third, a little bit, but that's kind of it. And you should be comfortable making those choices and knowing that you are sacrificing the other categories. And so I think that intentionally choosing what you're going to focus on and knowing that by choosing that, you are not choosing other things and that you have to be comfortable with that, I think is incredibly important, right?
I love that.
The other one I like as a framework. So one of our earliest investors was Brian Sugar. So he's in these Ubers all the time. And I was like, oh, wow, like you do a lot of Ubers. And he's like, yeah, the way I think about money, it's like, it's a way to buy time back, right? And he's like, so for me, I can either drive or I can work, talk, do something else that's not driving. And that's the way that I choose to spend my money.
It's funny you bring up those frameworks because I totally agree. It's like you have to value your time. Like, what's the value of your time? Put a number on it. And then that's how much you're willing to pay, essentially. To keep that time, you're willing to pay up to that to do something else. So whether that is like outsourcing your groceries, your laundry, whatever it is. And I'll also say, like, me even saying this, though, is part of like, I'm also part of the problem, though, for a lot of women. A lot of women don't have the option of outsourcing monetarily. And they don't have support. And I remember reading some of those books and I'm just like, I don't have the power or influence to control my hours like that or anything. But I do think, at least where I'm at currently, yes, outsourcing helps. And then I think what I can do is keep creating a culture, at least on my team and within my organization, of giving people within boundaries flexibility to take care of themselves, take care of their family, and also feel like they can still be competent and do things. Like the woman who was working on Threads, she's like, I'm pregnant. I'm like, and who cares? Like,
I am too.
Yeah. And I'm like, if I didn't give you this, that's elite. I mean, this is like, you were a great person for this, you know? There's no limits, I think, for any of us in the outsourcing piece, and just looking to other ways to make yourself more efficient, I think is right. And I also think like that's probably going to play into like when we think about AI and creators, I think that's what I'm excited about too, is AI helping with workflows and making things faster and easier, even just for us. Like there's so much now we could do to give ourselves time in different areas.
I mean, if you were to look at the amount of time that people spend working, like over the last, call it 100, 200 years, it's been on a very steady decline, right? Like the amount of time people spend per week. And so what does that open up? Where do you spend your time, right? Is it art? Is it time with your family? That was a pretty good thing for humanity. And so I expect the same thing to happen here. Now, where is it going to be in 50 years? I don't know.
I mean, we talked about this earlier of my journey at Meta and what I get excited about. Just the innovation of technology to allow people to bring people into experiences and create collective experiences, I've always found really interesting and fascinating. And I think that's why I'm also so passionate about creators, so passionate about businesses. I love economic freedom and I love helping people just like bring people into their worlds. And I look now of just what people are able to do with the iPhone or with the Android and whatever they're using to bring people in to show them what's going on around them. And I think that's really interesting. I also think anywhere you are, just share what's going on. It's a growing phenomenon, but I think back to the really old days, and I think the reason why people were so excited is just being able to like connect or feel connected at any given moment is a really powerful thing.
Well, I think that's what makes the internet special is you can take people, at any given high school, you might have been the only person that was really into something, or it's like you and one or two other people. But when you connect those two people at every single high school across the country, that becomes a very large community, right? Individually in your little local region, it's small, but collectively it's very big.
But like on that point though, around like people connecting over interesting things, like there's a stat, about the average marketing leader is going to increase their influencer marketing budget by 25% in the next year. And then also the rise of the nano creator and micro creator of how they're going to play into it. They're more ROI positive. And I think it plays into this whole notion though of like authenticity. Okay. Authenticity is like really important. And to build a brand, to tell a story, it's a long-term endeavor. Yeah. And especially in the US, the way people buy things is they want to like understand what the product is, what the brand is about. And I think adding these creators has been showing to add a lot of authenticity to that storytelling. And so I'm really excited to see how that kind of keeps going. But I think it's all still plays into this notion of just people. There's a time and a place for the mass broad appeal and very largeness. But there's also now these opportunities to be more curated, more authentic, smaller scale, but have big power.
Yeah. More specialized,
Yeah.
right? More specific.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot like sports talk radio. And they talk about all the leagues and all the teams, whatever. And you got to, and now there's just like podcasts about the NFL. And like, that's really cool. And now like there's podcasts about the Lions, which I listen to. And like, me and 800 other people are listening to. But it's like, it's gotten more and more specialized. And for me, I find myself opting for like the topic that I'm most interested in. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, I'm interested in sports broadly, but this is the team I care about the most. And so this is the content I actually want. Because in the old ones, I'd hear 1 minute of every hour would be about that team.
Right.
Well, I've taken up a lot of your time. So let's wrap it up with one fun end of show question. So one of the lesser known things about Jackie is that she's a big wrestling fan. So I'm curious, Jackie, who are your favorite wrestlers of all time?
Oh my God, I feel so caught off guard. No, Begley, Charlotte Flair.
Okay.
Let's see, Begley, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch. Oh my God, she just had a baby, Becky Lynch. If I'm going the men's side, I mean, I'm very excited. WrestleMania is also around my birthday, and I have dropped many a hints of how I would love to go to WrestleMania. The Rock is back. Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. If I ever saw him in person, I would cry and fall on the ground. There's so many. Old school, obviously, Ric Flair. I have his bobblehead on my desk, but it's more because he's a showman, just you got to respect the showmanship. Yeah, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I know everything about Nick Khan. Hey, what's up? No, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I have such a respect for what AEW and WWE and just wrestling. It's entertainment. What I do is also media, it's media, it's entertainment.
Same thing.
But yeah, I wish it was the same thing sometimes, but like, I love wrestling. It was the only channel we would get for over summers. For some reason, our cable was busted. And So back in the 80s, I started watching wrestling and I just kept going. I love it.
Oh my God. I love it. It's my favorite fun fact about you. Well, I really appreciate you taking out the time, particularly on maternity leave. You're way too kind. And congrats again on all the success. And I think it's really exciting to watch what you guys are doing. I know that Meta's just really taken off in our numbers as well as just generally. So congrats again. Really impressive.
Thank you. Creator IQ has been a wonderful partner and we're continuing. I'm excited for also the partnership with Creator IQ ahead. Our partners are everything. Like I said, we're all in this together. And I see this ecosystem continuing to thrive together and us to keep building the platforms and being a part of it and working with you all on how we keep helping brands grow and thrive and helping creators, earn a living.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Conor.
Be a friend, tell a friend, and subscribe. Earned by CreatorIQ. CreatorIQ is your all-in-one solution to grow, manage, scale, and measure your influencer marketing program. Ready to unlock the power of the creator economy? Get started with a demo today at CreatorIQ.com.